Hey there, I'm Lance and I'm a gamer.
And I'm Sam and I'm a non-gamer.
And we are Love to Hate, where we help gamers find great games to play with non-gamers.
And today we're taking a look at Lairs by Kids Tables Board Games.
Lairs is a game that is coming to crowdfunding here on November 12th, so make sure to check out the link down below in the description of this video after you watch it. Now with this particular game, this is a game for 2 players in which the both of you are not only going to be diving into a dungeon or a lair, but you will also be constructing the lair that the other player is going to be trying to navigate through. This is a game in which you construct your own dungeon using 3D pieces of walls and monster meeples and that sort of thing. And then you are going to be trying to navigate the other player's dungeon that they've constructed for you while that player tries to make their way through the dungeon that you've constructed for them. And this is essentially a race to try and find different treasures, trying to defeat different monsters, and ultimately escape the lair before the other player does and have the most points at the end of the game. This one also has unlockable content. You're going to be opening boxes and envelopes that's going to add to the content for what you can use in this one. Let's go down to the table where I'll show you how this one works. Won't spoil any of the unlockable content for you. And then we'll come back and we'll share thoughts on it as a gamer and non-gamer. Alright, I have Lairs on the table. Let me show you all about this dungeon creating and navigating game. Now, I want to make sure you understand that what you see in this portion of the video is prototype, so the final artwork, components, maybe even some of the rules might change once it's released from crowdfunding. Again, check out that campaign page at the link down below in the description of this video to get all the details on what would change with this game. So what you have here for components-wise, every player, well, each player, this is a 2-player game, each player is going to have their own player board, and these are dual recessed. These little spots on the board are going to be recessed into the board where you can put pieces into these spots. And as you can see, this is going to be a grid A, B, C, D, E, F, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down at the bottom. And this is going to make up the dungeon that you will be creating for the other player. So I'm going to keep one of these out on the board and leave the other one off frame. Each player is going to have their own screen that's going to show you the rules for the game. And as you can see, there are going to be blank spots here. You will be adding additional rules to this game as you unlock content that will change up the way that this game plays. It shows you all the rules for the basic game as well, though. You'll keep the screen up in front of your player board because you don't want the other player to see the dungeon that you've made for them. But for the portion of this video, I'm going to take this off frame so that we can save some space. Now, you also are going to have treasure chests that you are going to be placing in your dungeon that the other player will try to collect. These are very important. You want to try to collect the treasure chests that the other player hides for you and let you get a close-up of what that treasure chest looks like. It is painted. These are wooden meeples. Again, this is prototype, so I'm not 100% sure whether these will be final or not, but this is pretty nice. Now, in the base game, you will be having these hungry blobs as the monsters for your dungeon, and you'll be hiding these in your dungeon, but again, the other player is going to be doing the same thing against you as well. Now, each player is going to have one bigger meeple and one little meeple. You will take one of each color, and you are going to be placing the bigger meeple out here in the dungeon, and that is going to be the other player's player piece as they move about your dungeon. You'll keep your little meeple that represents you, and you'll be placing it on your player sheet over here. Now, I had that the right way the first time. And you will be putting it on one of these spaces, navigating the other player's dungeon using your little meeple to represent yourself while they're moving the bigger meeple that is you on their board, moving that about. And so that's why you have 2 different meeples of 2 different colors. You do also have extra tiles. These are going to be traps in the base game. The trap is going to be a greased pit, and so you'll be placing 3 traps in your dungeon. There will also be an exit and a start space, and you are going to have lots of walls, 20 to be exact. And again, these are going to be placed into these cutout spots right here like so. Now, the first portion of the game is going to be played behind the player screen, in which you are going to be constructing your maze. You have to use at least 17 of these walls. You don't have to use all of them. You can leave 3 of them out, but you have to use at least 17, and you'll be just creating some sort of labyrinth with these pieces. Now, there are some rules about what you have to do, what you can create here. You cannot block off an entire spot of the dungeon. So I could not do this because these 2 spots right here are completely blocked off. There is a wall on the outside edge of the board. You have to have everything open. So I could do this, as there would be one way to be able to get into these spots right here. I could not cut off the entire board in half because, again, you have to have a pathway to get to everything, and so maybe I leave one little spot open here to get to the other side. But anyhow, I'm going to be creating some sort of labyrinth with my walls, and this is very much up to the person who's creating it how they want to do this. So this is going to change every time you play the game. It'll be completely different depending upon how they feel, what creative process that they have as they kind of create this. And so I'm just making one up as I go here, not really thinking too much about what I'm doing. But again, I can leave up to 3 of these walls out, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave those out. Now, I do have to pick a start spot and an exit spot, so why don't I just have the start spot be right here in the corner, and the exit spot is going to be right here on E3. Now, what other rules exist for how I create my labyrinth? Well, I have to make a single path that gets to every goal, treasure chest, and the exit without passing through more than 1 monster and more than 1 greased pit. Now, I could have it go through 1 of each, but I could not have the path go through 2 monsters or 2 greased pits. Now, that's just for the goals and just for the exit. So, in other words, if I put a goal here, or a treasure chest right here in this spot, I could not have 2 traps back to back right here, because there has to be a way to get to this without going through 2 traps or 2 monsters. Now, I could leave a trap there, and I could put a monster there, and let's say that I put another monster back here in the corner. Let's say I put one right here, and we're going to put the traps there, and let's put a trap there. We're going to put the treasure chest there, and we'll put a treasure chest, I don't know, let's say right here. Now, this would be legal if I'm understanding the rules correctly, because I can get to every goal without having to go through more than 1 monster and more than 1 trap. Now, obviously, I have to go through a trap to get to this, but that's okay. I'm not going through 2 traps. And same thing as I've already explained right there, so that would be legal as well. And all the other things in my dungeon, there's more than one way to get to it. So I could go this way and go down through F2 to get to here, but I could also go to E1. But again, I'm not passing through any obstacles to get to that, so that's legal. Now, what your opponent is trying to do and what you're trying to do on their board is simply trying to navigate this maze to get to these goals, to maybe take out some monsters and to escape, because ultimately what you'll be doing in this game is trying to exit with 3 treasure chests, 3 destroyed monsters, or 2 of each. If I can complete that rubric in one of those 3 ways, then I can get to the exit and I can leave. Now, how a turn is going to work in this, you're going to have some cubes, and each of these cubes are action points for you to spend. At the beginning of the game, they're all going to be here on this fresh spot, and I can take a number of actions, spending these cubes, moving them to the spent spot to do the action. So what are some of the actions? Well, the one that you'll be doing more often than not is to creep. And so to creep, I have to spend any 1 cube, doesn't matter the color. I move it over here to spent, and what would happen is I can simply just walk from one space to the next. So I might move from A6 to A5. And every time that you creep or move in this game, your opponent is going to tell you what you see. So in this case, if my opponent did this, they moved from A6 to A5, I would tell them, well, there's obviously a wall to the north because the outer edge is always a wall, but you see nothing else. You always tell them what walls they might see and then what features there are. So I would tell them, you see the wall to the north because that's the edge of the board, but you don't see anything else. And what they would be doing on their player sheet here, they would know that they started in A6 because that's where they have to start. And they would circle this spot here on A5 because every spot that you go to or you have knowledge of, you are going to circle it to show that you know what's there. Now, if there had been a wall, so let's say instead they went down here to B6, I would tell them that you see a wall to your south. And they would color in the wall to the south, like so. And again, they would circle that spot to show that they know what's there. And yep, they would circle this one because that's where they start. But that's all that they would see. Now, that is the creep action. There is another action, and that is to peer. Now, when you peer, you could spend any 2 cubes to peer, or you could spend the green cube, just the one green cube, because it has the eyeball, and you are peering into what is in the next spot. And so, let's say they want to peer into B5. Well, they're lucky because they saw that there is a hungry blob. And when you peer and you see a monster, again, you're going to circle it, but the monster is going to be represented by a square. And because they peered and they looked into that spot, nothing bad happens to them. Let's say that they didn't peer, though. Let's say that they creeped again, spending any 1 color cube to do that, and they just ran headfirst into the hungry blob. Well, that's bad luck for them because running into the hungry blob, if you did not peer, if you did not know that there was a hungry blob there, then you will suffer the penalty, which is to fatigue any 2 cubes. So what is fatigue? Well, if you'll look on the player board, there is the fresh, the spent, and fatigued. And so when you fatigue, you have to move 2 cubes to the fatigue. So I'll spend these ones that are in the spent, and they just basically go into fatigue. And what that means is I lose these cubes for the next round because they'll come back to the spent, but I won't be able to use them until 2 turns later. Now, that is running into the blob, but let's say that it had not been a blob. Let's say that it had been a trap instead. If I run straight into the trap, the penalty is different. I have to fatigue 2 fresh cubes. And again, the fresh cubes are the ones that aren't spent. I haven't used them, and so they would just go straight to the fatigue. That's really bad. I didn't even get to use those cubes. So that's peering and creeping. There is the backtrack action, or let's cover the hustle track action first. Now, hustle action, you could use any 2 color cubes, or you could use the yellow cube. And when you use the yellow cube, what you're going to do, or the 2 cubes of any color, you're going to move up to 3 spaces, basically doing the creep action up to 3 times. And again, every time you move, your opponent is going to tell you what walls you see and any features that you might see. Now, you can take out these traps and you can take out these monsters, so let's cover that real quick because that is a very important part of the game. When you go into one of these spaces, you can spend cubes, any number of cubes you want to spend, to give yourself a die to use as you fight the monster or the trap that you might be in. Now, these dice are not normal dice. They are going to have 1 1, 2 2s, 2 3s, and a 4. And so you're going to roll however many dice you purchase with your cubes. You would not roll them on the board, but I'm just keeping them out here. And you need to roll this number or higher to be able to defeat it. And if you defeat it, then it comes off of the board. You collect it because it's going to go on your player board. Monsters will go in these spots right here. And as you can see, you're going to get 2 points for having defeated 2, and you'll get 4 points for having defeated 3. If you defeat traps, traps work the same way. You're just going to keep them over here on this spot. Now, they're not going to give you anything initially, but there could be some cards that you'll get along the way that might give you points for your traps. And they might change based on playing in the more advanced versions of this game as you unlock content. So that's how you take things off the board. The last thing that I'll go over real quick is just to collect these treasure chests because these are the most important, or one of the most important features of the game. When you get to a treasure chest, your opponent would say, hey, you discovered a treasure chest, and you collect it automatically. This would come over to your player board. You'd put them on these spots right here. And what this icon indicates to you is that you get 1 treasure card from the deck and 1 from the market. There are going to be some treasure cards in the game, and these are going to give you all sorts of benefits and boons. Again, you'll take 1 from the deck, but there's going to be a small market of 3 cards, and you'll take 1 extra from that small market. What these are going to give you are a number of victory points up here in the top left. This is going to tell you a type of treasure, and this particular one is a goblet, and there's going to be some keywords on some of these treasures, and then there's going to be a scoring goal down here on the bottom. So this is the Shattered Grail, plus 3 points if you have exactly 3 grails, plus 2 if you also have a gem. And so as you can see, there's gem treasures as well. And some of these treasures are going to give you variable points. So for instance, this one is going to give you a variable number of points, and the variable is that you get +1 for each chest you have opened. And so you want to try to open up more chests if you have this one in particular. So that's how these treasures work. Now, once you have one of the requirements in order to exit the dungeon, again, that's either 3 chests, 3 monsters, or 2 of each, then you can exit the dungeon, and you have to find out where that exit is. As you can see, my exit's way down here, but I don't know that. I'm just trying to navigate this maze, and when I find it, then I can exit if I have all the things that I need. When the first player exits the dungeon, the other player has one more turn to be able to do whatever they need to do and hopefully exit the dungeon, and then that would be the end of the game. Now, there is one other type of action that I haven't covered, and that is to backtrack. That would simply be to use the yellow cube. You have no other option. You cannot spend extra cubes to do it. You have to spend the yellow cube to be able to do it, and the backtrack is going to let you move back to any spot that you have already previously known. So a spot that you have circled so long as you've taken out the monster or the trap that's on that spot. And then when you do take out a monster or a trap, you're going to fill in squares for monsters, triangles for traps. So if there was a trap on a spot, let's say right here, I would have a triangle. And if I took out that trap, I would fill it in like so. And again, backtracking lets me travel back through all these spots that have circles on them. You can't move through walls, obviously, and that's pretty much the gist of the game. Now, last thing I'll cover in this portion of the video is that there are unlockable boxes and envelopes to be able to open up. Now, in this prototype version that we received, we only had box 1 and box 2, as well as envelopes A and B. And when you unlock these, they're going to add new content, extra rules, possibly extra monsters, traps, treasure cards, different types of cubes to use, all sorts of goodies to be able to unlock and play this game with a new set of rules. But pretty much that's the gist of what you have here with Lairs. Let's go back up top and share our thoughts on this one. And we're back, and now we're going to share our thoughts on Lairs from a gamer and non-gamer's perspective. So, Sam, this was one of the games that I got to try out at Gen Con this past summer, and had a great time playing it with Sean of Kids Table Board Games. Absolutely was thrilled with the playthrough that I got to do there. Was very excited to get a chance to preview this one, try it out with you. So we just got this in the mail the other day. Wanted to get it to the table real soon. What did you think about this one?
I thought it was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be after hearing the instructions. I thought it was going to be, I thought making the maze and putting things and then directing each other, not really directing each other, but figuring out where you are, where I am. It sounds more complicated than it is. Yeah, it definitely has a look about it, and especially when you're trying to explain it, that it might be something that might be, whoa, that's a bit too much. Even as we were trying monsters, traps, gold, you know, all that stuff. But even as we were playing, we have some friends that are staying with us, and one of our friends, he was watching us playing it, and he was kind of like, this seems like it's a little bit much. And it's not. It's really not.
This is a very straightforward game, I feel like. I mean, it's simply just you construct this maze, and you're telling the person you see a wall to the north, you see a monster, you see a trap, right? And so you're kind of giving this visual story of what's happening, almost like a D&D kind of game, an RPG, but you're actually navigating through this 3D maze. And I like it. It is kind of like a story experience for me anyhow. As I'm filling in the walls, as I'm putting the traps out, I'm picturing this story unfold. I don't know, what was that like for you? I didn't picture a story. You didn't picture a story. But I did. I had, you know, I kept thinking, my maze is better than this. I thought I did a really good job on my maze at the end. All right. But that's one of the things that I fell in love with this game. I liked building it. Yes, because that building part is so creative, and you're like, ooh, I'm going to make these nice little dead ends. And at first, it took me a while to get started because I felt like there was a lot of rules. You got to make sure this is there and that's there, and but once you start doing it, it kind of comes together pretty easily. I think you're right. I think it's one of those things that you hear it and it's like, what, and then you start to do it and you're like, okay, that makes sense. But constructing the maze to me is like one of the highlights of this game, because it is so much fun
Well, you're
planning
like,
these little
I wonder if he's
sabotages.
going to go here and
Yeah.
he might get stuck here. And,
Right, exactly.
We both ended up putting our end spot on the exact
same
same
spot in the maze. Yeah. But our mazes looked incredibly different getting to that particular point. So let's talk about just the gameplay experience. This is a game in which you are using these cubes for action selection, action points, and you want to manage those wisely. And there's times when you do need to take risks and just run straight into the darkness and hope you don't run into a trap or a monster. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And that's a little bit of trying to be intuitively thinking about how did you make your maze? Do you want me to go this way? So there's a little bit of that meta gaming experience with this one. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like making it, or as far as
like playing the game, using the cubes, trying to decide when to be risky, when to run head first.
I think both of us had like one risky move that backfired on us. So I wonder, as we would play more and you open more envelopes and stuff.
Yeah.
Because after I was like, I liked that, but I never really felt like I was running out of cubes.
Okay.
Or that I was behind.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I don't want to say it was too easy, but I feel like it could be more difficult.
Well, the unlockable content, and we only have 2 boxes and 2 envelopes in this prototype version. There's a lot more content that you want to check out that campaign page to get the details on. But what we have, even just the little bit that we have, it adds in extra monsters. It adds in extra things you can do on your turn.
Yeah.
Different types of cubes. You don't have just the white, the green, and the yellow cubes. There are other cubes that you're going to be using.
I definitely think that's a good thing because while it wasn't necessarily easy, I do think just the base game, if that's all there was to it and you weren't adding into it, I don't know that you would continue to play it.
Do want to be clear on that with our review on this game, is that we only get such a small portion of what you can do in this one. And so even with just that, we had such a great experience.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what the full game does for it, right? Like, can't even imagine. So I thought, that metagaming experience is a very fun thing, trying to think, you want me to go over here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go this way and see what happens. And then sometimes that backfires.
We both did some of the same stuff. Both of our end spots were in a little... little alcove.
Like, you're not gonna go that way because you might think it's so out of the way.
We made it difficult to get to certain spots. So I think next time you're like, okay, I remember we did this. Let me try something.
Next time I'm just gonna put it right in the middle.
Yeah, without anything around it.
Yeah, that's the fun thing that you can do with this one. So. But lots of unique things about this game. One that I don't think I've ever really seen done before with this, like constructing the maze and kind of being the maze runner, running through the other person's maze.
We've played a game where you have to figure out the maze as you go.
Yes.
But we've never done
Not any of this me against you. We've made our own mazes kind of thing. So yeah. But anyway, guys, this one is called Lairs. It is from Kids Table Board Games. Again, it's coming to crowdfunding very, very soon, November 12th to be exact. Check out the link down below in the description of this video to get all the details on this one and see what's so great about this particular one. While you're down there, make sure to leave us some comments. Let us know what you think about Lairs and Kids Table Board Games.
Make sure to like and subscribe and push that bell button so you get notifications of all our new content.
I'm Lance.
I'm Sam.
And we are Love to Hate, where we bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.